What's going on, smart movers? This is Strizzy Report. Head over to StrizzyReport.com. Just drop some great reports on the website in our blog. And today we're going to talk about how do you find emerging markets to invest in? How do you know what's a good market from what's not a good market? I was reading some comments here on Reddit, and to my surprise, people are having this problem. This is the number one, I think, small-time investors have, because they don't have a lot of money to just be spending on data, right? Data research, or somebody never told them about data research, or to be obsessed with data before making a decision. Someone just said, hey, that's a hot market over there, and then they follow. Or they catch something on YouTube or TikTok from a real estate guru that says, hey, look into this market, and they run. When someone says to look into a market from a perspective of follow me and I'm a real estate god or whatever, that means the market is probably already done and you're going to be late to the market. So in this article that I'm reading, or in comments on Reddit, someone says, hey, how can you determine some of the new constructions happening in a certain neighborhoods? Where's the data for that? They said, I just drive around for hours in where I'm interested to look for clean blocks and no boarded up homes, right? Someone else said, going to the neighborhood yourself is always the best. People need to have a roof over their head. So if people are currently living there, I assume it's highly likely people will continue to live there, they're spelt incorrectly, for a good amount of time. My main concern is, who exactly would I be renting to? They're saying that they bought a property in Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey is going to be the Detroit of that time. And then someone else says, hey, I go visit the location physically and ask myself, would I rent there? None of which, no one's saying, except for one person here, that's the smart one, that says, where's the data? Why aren't you looking at data? Why aren't you putting a location, a town, a neighborhood in a set of criteria or guidelines, and when it drops out of that guideline, it's yes or no, based on the data. This is not based on emotion, not based on if you would live there, if you're assuming people will live there. It's not based on nothing. It's based on the data. Now, just going through something else, someone says here, there's a few criteria I use. Let me share them with you. I hope at least one of them finds home with you. For residential real estate, I typically look at least 2 industrial areas for hubs within an hour or 2 radius. This is a little smarter now. They're getting smarter. These hubs need not be like the Bay Area, but offices of manufacturers, a few huge headquarters. This is good because where the jobs are, people are, and people could afford to rent, people could afford to buy, right? So he says, he looks for the jobs, he looks for employment, he looks for hubs. So someone says, man, this is really helpful. These are investors. These are people that are purchasing. It's real estate investing Reddit. So it's like people are smart, right? They're doing something with their money. They're flipping it. They're, building legacy. So I would feel like people would have a data set, a criteria, a guide to help them invest better, right? You don't want to go to a location. You don't want to just bet on emotion. You don't want to invest in hype. You don't want to invest in a trend. You want to really make a solid decision, because it's a big decision to invest in a certain area. So the only person that made absolute sense on here said, growth, mainly population and GDP. Good growth indicators are what will help you make your investing in an area likely to see rents and property values appreciate over time. This information is public and easily determined via census data. And then someone who was a real estate investor answered and said, so you mean take a look at the population statistics for an area over a span of time, like last decade, to get an idea of trends? Do they typically have GDP statistics at the neighborhood city level? So as you know, as you could see, as I'm reading, people need help. And I love that I built the Strizzy report just to help this. So today, I want to talk about how to research emerging real estate trends, right? Real estate markets without guessing. We need to stop guessing. We need to get actual data, right? So step one, there's 4 steps. Number 1 is look for population growth. How do you do this? U.S. Census data, state and county level, U-Haul and United Van Lines migration reports. There are migration reports. A person leaves from Boston, they go to Memphis. The person leaves from San Diego, they go to Oklahoma. Like, there's migration data. Local news on housing demands and zoning updates. Now, depending on where you are, you probably won't get the local news, so I wouldn't put that too far on top of your list, but it is a way to look for population growth. Cities gaining residents from higher cost states usually experience rising home values and rental demand. So it's same thing that happens in Boise, right? You know, Boise 10 years ago, the rents there, the prices there for homes, same thing that's happening in places in Utah. Same thing that's happening in Sioux Falls, right? So these are the things that happen when you get a lot of people coming in from a high price state. They're also bringing that money with them, and they're making what a low cost neighborhood that's rising in prices as well. All right, watch job growth and industry moves. That's why I said that one person that had that comment was very smart. Good job growth is huge. Industry moves, huge. Why did New York, why did Long Island City really want the H2 from Amazon to go there? Because it's bringing income into the city. It's bringing income into Queens. It's bringing income across the bridge. And where people work, people move, people gather, people spend, people pay taxes, people pay property taxes. So that's why they encourage these states, these cities, they encourage big headquarters of huge companies to go there. And they, flaunt tax benefits, tax incentives, credits to get this, because they know economically it'll be good for their city or state if this large employer is there, right? So new employer announcements is something where, and that you can find that on Biz Journal, right? If you go to Biz Journal, you type in a location, you could see all these new employer announcements, where they're going to be, where they're building next, where they're moving next, where they open their office, where the manufacturing center is going, where the data center is going. So that is a great way to look, right? Expansions in tech, manufacturing, logistics, and healthcare, huge ones. Those 4 industries right there, huge. Logistics, because logistics doesn't just affect where it's at, right? There's little satellites all around logistics. They don't just go from one major hub to another major hub. It goes in satellites. So logistics is huge. Manufacturing is huge. Healthcare, it's always been huge. And tech, of course, is coming in like World War III in a lot of these places. And these are the four real industries that you should look for. Aerospace as well. Job creation data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. You could go on that. Again, this is all public information. If you spend a little more time researching, you can make better decisions. Once you have the data, you make that better decisions. The good golden rule of thumb is let the data make your decision. Don't make the decision and then get the data. Because then you're going to see what you want to see. Let the data just make the decision. It's either a yes or a no. There's no gray area here. Strong job growth attracts renters and buyers, right? Compare price to rent ratios. This is huge, guys. Price to rent ratios is a market may look cheap to buy into, but is it a good investment? This is what a lot of people miss. Low price to rent ratio equals strong rental income potential. You could utilize something like Trulia's rent versus buy calculator, where they have a calculator on their website. High ratio means low income yield. It's possibly overvalued. So once you get to know and compare price to rent ratios, or even know what that is, and you could check it out on Investing, or you could go to Strizzy Report. We did a whole thing on this. Then you could really make a decision and understand that. So sites like Rent-A-Meter, Zillow, Mashvisor can help you run the numbers, but you got to actually run numbers, right? And step 4 is scan local development activity. Now, this may be a little harder because you're going into the permit. You really have to understand going into these local counties, these local municipalities, and checking their permit process. Permits, once you apply for a permit, becomes a public knowledge, right? Again, these are all public knowledge. You got to find out the opportunity zones, what's happening there, who's building, and usually the company is high level. It might be a private equity, and then the construction company, then you find out the person, right? But is new construction happening? That's really what this is all about. Is new construction happening? Are there new highways, transit lines, or retail centers coming in? They usually, this new thing happened, right? Instead of like malls, and over the last 10 years, where they would put town centers, right, where you got apartments, mixed use apartments, shopping, dining, and it was all in the center of one area. So Sundays, Saturdays, everyone's driving to these areas, and I know you've seen them all over America, in Boston, in Jersey, wherever. They have town centers now. The mall, the ideas of the huge mall, the enclosed area is 20 years ago. It's not happening now as much as these huge retail centers that are coming up. So you could look for that, and you could see if anything is happening in that area. Development follows demand. If builders are confident, it's a good sign, because there is a builder's confidence report as well. So we give you all of that, and let me give you another step here. Check affordability and inventory. A balanced inventory or housing selling and buying is 6 months demand, 6 months supply, right? 6 months supply. If you see a supply that's under 6 months, that means it's a hotter market, right? That means it's a seller's market. It's not a buyer's market. Over 6 months, if a property is on, the majority, the average property is on the market, over 6 months, it's a buyer's market, right? So affordable median home prices, emerging markets usually have this. And then they have tight housing inventory, which means, again, less than 6 months. High demand to supply ratio. So look at demand and supply and find out what that is. So too much inventory, again, buyer's market. Too little, seller's market. Look for the sweet spot in between. So emerging markets aren't just about the hype or driving through the city and looking for if there's boarded up houses, and it's really not that, because then everyone would stay local, right? How come you got investors from China buying places? You got investors from Russia. You got foreign money coming in here. They never seen the neighborhood to begin with. What are they looking at? They're looking at the data. They're looking at the numbers. I've seen it for myself in Philly. I saw what happened to Philly. I saw what happened to even Metuchen, New Jersey, right? And different areas. You could smell it. You could feel it. You know what's coming. You know what's happening. But how do people know what's happening and not be there, right? You can't just go off of, I'm driving around looking to see if people live there. That doesn't work, all right? So it's not about hype. It's about signals. And once you know these signals and these criterias, you can make better decisions. So you pay attention to the population trends, the job creation, the affordability, the development momentum. You look at all of those things, and then you make your decision if it's a good place to invest or not. We could help you out. We do the research for you. Head over to StrizzyReport.com. In fact, every week we send out a newsletter. It's a free newsletter. It's easy to join. Just head over to StrizzyReport.com. And in that, we give you where to go, what to know, and what 100K could get you. for investors, for relocators, for smart movers. Okay, and plus you get 10 gems every week on smart money moves. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, give it a share, give it a whirl, give it in the algorithm whirl, and hope you enjoy your day. Peace.